everybody. I'll give you a little update on where we are and what's going on with all that in a few minutes. We've had some changes to the committee, but let's officially kick this off. Today is July 11th. It's a little after 11:30. I'd like to call to order the Town of Cohasset Sidewalk Committee. After I call your name, just please say present for the record. Jay Pampare, present. Ralph Dormitzer.
Present.
Frank Giacchetti.
Present.
Julie Rollins.
Present.
Bob Mulhall.
Present.
Great. Absent are Paul Grady, who I believe is trying to call in. I'm hoping that Brian Joyce can join in as well. And I know Tori was going to be out as well. Frank, how's everything going on the house front? Home
Good.
front?
Still waiting.
Still waiting. Oh boy.
Yeah.
How far is she? How far past the due date are you?
She's actually not to the due date yet. They were originally going to induce her at 39 weeks for various reasons, but did not. So we're 39 and a half weeks now. I think it'll be Thursday or Friday when the baby comes.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Yeah. Okay, so just looking at the agenda item here, the first item of business is the approval of minutes for 6/20. Thank you, Julie, for all your help in sending those around and coordinating that. Any comments to the 6/20 minutes?
Just a quick one. One of them says the Brook Street to the east end into margin. Is that possibly into Elm or something? I'm not sure. Then connect to Border and Summer Street. I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand what that was, but okay.
I would have to go back and look at that, Ralph.
Yeah. Because Brook doesn't intersect margin. Then connects to Border and Summer.
Let me go back here.
It could be a little, just probably a typo on Brook. It's probably not Brook Street. It might be Cove Road or something.
East end into margin interface.
Yeah. It's not that important that we have it absolutely right, but just out of curiosity, did I miss something there? So anyway.
Yeah. All right. Let's. I'm happy to make a revision to that, and as long as there are no other comments. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Brook Street to East End into Margin Street. Where is Brook Street?
Brook Street's that little street that connects South Main Street to Elm. Yeah.
All right.
It's where Brook and Main is, and the nail salon and FIA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is all a guesstimate anyway, so
okay.
Nothing is that was just in the proposal. So I think we're okay, Ralph, here, because nothing's been approved and moving forward.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm just curious.
Yep.
What did we mean something else? That's all. But I don't know. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, having no further comment, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of 6/20. Do I have a second?
Second, Julie.
All those, thank you, Julie. All those in favor, please say aye together. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? That vote passes 5-0. I know we're supposed to do this all by roll call vote, but for the interest of time, for some of the easy ones, let's just go forward with that. Okay, the next item of business is the topics not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. Does anybody have something that they want to bring up that's not on the agenda here?
Hey, Jay, I just have a question. This came to me yesterday, but a friend of mine reached out about the speed limit around town and different signage for, various roads and whatever. Is that within scope for this group to kind of confirm the signage and townwide speed limit?
Well, I don't know if it's within the scope. We did have as one of our criteria, which I can share in a little bit, something about speed limit and signage. And there was a comment that I don't think we should so much get involved in with setting of speed limits, but where there is a speed limit, certainly, I think this committee could recommend signage, etc., where there's high traffic areas. So let's
Yeah,
circle
and this,
let's circle back to that when we
Yeah.
get down to the setting of the criteria.
sure.
But you raised a good point. All right, anything else? So thank you, Julie, for sharing the screen here. I wanted to just give a quick recap of the June 27th Select Board meeting. Did anybody listen in on that?
Yep.
Of course.
Anybody?
I did
Yeah,
not.
I know Ralph, you and I were there. Did Bob, Frank, Julie, did you happen to listen in on that?
No, I wasn't available. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem at all.
Yeah.
I was just going to give, Frank, did you say you did?
I did, yep. I listened in.
All right. So I just want to, and it really, I thought I was just going to put together a quick little PowerPoint and then really set the tone for the rest of this meeting and bring everybody up to speed. So I want to do that. I don't see that Brian is on yet. I'm hoping that Brian can be here to give a quick little update. Also want to talk about the Elm Street plan and then setting of the criteria and then this final report that the select board is looking for by August 1st. So I don't know. I don't know how we're going to meet that. If we do meet, it's going to be a quick and easy report. We can certainly talk about that. I do have some ideas, but let me just, if I can do Julie, if you could stop sharing. I just wanted to share my screen. Thank you. See if I can share my screen here. And I wanted to, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
You can see the sidewalk presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this is a quick and easy, and I wanted to just again give you, are you looking at two slides or one slide?
Seeing your
Two.
view, not the presentation view.
All right, how's that?
Good.
Okay, so I gave this presentation for those who will listen. It's a quick and easy to the select board, and I think it's worthwhile to bring it up here to this group. And so the committee members, as you know, you will notice that we have all of us here. And so we have now 7 members. Bill Burnett is no longer, unfortunately, is no longer a member of the committee. So instead of having an 8-committee board and looking for an extra person, we actually down to 7 people. So and the great benefit of that is we only need 4 people for a quorum now. So we have 7 full voting members, and we have Brian Joyce, who has been identified by Ralph and myself and the select board as a ex officio who can vote in the event that they're and participate as to make a quorum in the event that we need them to. So we're down to 7 plus Brian. And so a quick little update here. As you know, the projects that have already been complete are the responded to a text there is Church Street, Doan Street. That's already been done. The upcoming paving plan, the 2 that are on the docket here, at least the very first one, which is definitely going forward, is Smith Place and Cushing Road. That came in at 154,000. The Margin Street, and I guess we're still we need to talk a little bit about this. Right now, it's from Elm to Atlantic, and then the Margin Street to Whitehead Road came in at 182,000. I will make note that the quotes were about 50% of the actual estimate that we have in the paving plan. The PDF, I think it's a PDF or Excel spreadsheet of the 10-year paving plan, which I put up in the past, gives a designated roadway and then an estimate. And so we've been looking at those numbers for budget purposes, but the real quote from Teal Edwards, which came in probably give or take a month or so ago, was roughly half of that. So that was very encouraging. And we still have to talk about exactly the Elm Street to Margin Street to Whitehead. That might be a little smaller given the issues that are ongoing with Elm Street corridor. In any event, Pond Street, 3A to the end of the gas trench line, that's funded by the gas company. That is supposed to be done in the next month or so as well, and that's $130,000, but that doesn't come out of our budget. And so pending projects is Elm Street, which we'll get to in a little bit, and then Beechwood, Bound Brook down to Shaw's. It seems like the Beach Street project will more than likely be maybe a springtime project in 2024. Early, only due to the fact that there's still construction going on there. They have to finish the trenchway. As Brian has mentioned, we've got to let that set for a minimum 90 days. That gives August, September, October. That means you're coming into November and don't really want to pave it then. In an ideal situation, we'd like to have the roadway or the trench settle for a full winter season. So it looks like that Beechwood area, it'll be trenched and it'll look nice, but a full mill and overlay of the entire roadway will probably happen spring of 2024. And that is funded by the gas company as well. So that's a positive. And this was what it looked like at the time, the criteria for a sidewalk consideration. I do want to circle back to that. And we I got comments from Julie, which were great comments on that. And again, I'll circle back to that. And then the grant applications, as you all know, the Elm Street corridor, which we put in for $950,000, and then the townwide ADA accessible sidewalk projects for $160,000. And then what we promised to do was to continue to explore state and federal grants and then propose prioritized roadways and sidewalks. So that was kind of a quick and easy setup for me to turn it over to Mike Sidina, who talked a little bit more in depth about the plan. But before I don't see that Brian is on yet, unfortunately, any questions on that quick and easy PowerPoint as far as, where we stood 2 weeks ago? Because things have changed a little bit.
Jay, I don't mean to interrupt, but Brian said he's busy right now, but he should be able to be on around noontime.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No questions on that. Great. Okay. So as a result of that, before I start talk about Elm Street, the select board, and I guess I'll move this kind of some of these agenda items around a little bit, is looking for a report, and they threw out August 1st as a deadline, although we can definitely get more time to come up with some form of a report from this committee, which I thought was not going to be till later the fall, but they would like the report prior to town meeting in the fall, because they are going to be coupling this, a request for money for sidewalks, for ball fields, and a few other things thrown in there with a request for a significant amount of money. So I think, and Ralph, feel free to chime in here. I think our report should kind of look at the next, we've talked about 2 to 3, but I would probably say 3 to 5 years as far as what we would like to see as far as funding goes. We've talked about throwing out the $1 million number, but I think we should shoot for something a little higher, because the budget for each one of the years ahead is $1 million anyway. So let's go a little higher than that, but let's forecast as a committee what roadways and or monetary value that we feel that should be dedicated to the roads and sidewalk committee, so that we're not sitting here in kind of a stalemate like I think we are right now, figuring out, well, there's only $1 million in the budget. We've spent 300,000. We've got 700 in the kitty, but which I'll get to Elm Street in a little bit. The 700 is pretty much a lock for Elm Street when Elm Street is done. So we're not going to go spend any more money, maybe a couple little side projects, and take away from that $700,000 pot that right now is, earmarked for Elm Street. So how do we move forward? And so I think that's, and what type of report do we put together that spells that all out? So Ralph, I don't know if you you want to add to that a little bit, but
Sure.
we will get into a little bit of a time crunch and then maybe spend the next meeting kind of talking a little bit about what this report should look like and how we put it together.
Yeah, let me just say quickly, I think it's really a two-part report. One, of course, is roads, the other is sidewalks. So that's sort of a starting point. As far as roads go, I think we pretty well know that given the capital budget's 300,000 and the couple of 200,000 coming from the Chapter 90 money, we're probably at 500,000 to start with each year. So I think you got to add 500,000 probably, Jay, something like that, to that
Yeah.
amount for roads only. So if I was talking about it, I'd say we have 500,000 presumably from previous allocations, and now we're going to have to add 500,000. That's a starting point. I don't know if it's exactly right, but that says $1 million a year one way or the other for roads. The one that I find most difficult to sort out is sidewalks. We almost do need something like the road paving plan ourselves for sidewalks. So that says,
Right.
Yeah, year by year, 3 to 5 years, whatever that number is, what are the sidewalks we intend to do in what categories? For example, you might say, well, we're definitely going to do all the sidewalks associated with roads that are going to get paved. That's easy, wherever that can be done, and there are existing sidewalks. But after that, you have other questions. But fundamentally, the question is, how do we put together a paving plan for sidewalks out of all of this and put a number against it? So that's what I think the issue is going to be here. So,
And I think that we can lean on the TEC report that Frank did a lot of the legwork on with the grant application, and just kind of picking through that, because the TEC report specifically outlined areas in the community that are already the sidewalks are in place, and then they prioritize them on a scale of 1 to 5 of the repair needs. And then there are also areas that were suggested or recommended where a sidewalk should be that currently is not in place now. And then there's the third component, which we put the grant in for, which to me is the low hanging fruit of $130,000 of just making all current existing sidewalks now ADA compliant. So you don't have to push a wheelchair off 6-inch drop to get onto a roadway. So I think we can heavily lean on that TEC report for a lot of the information.
So it's really just prioritizing, I guess, is what I'm probably suggesting is going to be the critical question here. Yeah.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
Oh, well, I think the prioritization is well covered on one of those slides you had, Jay, like the more detailed one about, like, some radius around schools and the sailing center and things like that. I mean, that's where the focus for sidewalk improvement should be. I think everyone agrees there, right? I think the thing I get stuck with it's the malleability of that report we have. It's very PDF and hard to work with. If there was something that was in Excel that we could sort and play around with, I think that would be a lot easier to sort things out.
I think we did, I don't know if it was distributed widely. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we did get the sidewalk list of the TEC report printed out in Excel so that we can sort it. And I think that's a good way to go forward. Obviously, it's a third-party report, so we can say this isn't just our opinion. This is backed up by an engineering firm. My only question with that or issue is that they don't, even though it states that they do, they don't list every sidewalk in town. For example, Pleasant Street, where I live, has a sidewalk for most of the length, but it's not listed at all on the report. So we would need to amend it. And I don't know how much of a lift that would be to figure out which roads have sidewalks that aren't included in that report. That's just one that's top of mind for me because it's right out front.
Yeah, no, and I agree. The TEC report did leave off some pretty glaring areas of town that are in need of sidewalks. So, again, let's not focus completely on that report. I think we could lean on that quite a bit, but there are other areas. So, perhaps a to-do for the next meeting would be, and I don't know, maybe there's a within this group we could identify like a subcommittee, someone to either look at sidewalks themselves and or roadways themselves. If I don't know how people feel about that. We've got 5 on the line here, or we tackle this as a whole group and prioritize that.
It does.
One
it
of the
does
things
need-
that,
it does-
go
You're
ahead,
right,
Rob.
Jay. It does need homework, there's no doubt about it. We can't come in and talk about it. We really have to do homework in advance. It's a matter of who's going to do that. And that's a substantial piece of work, I think, to
Yeah.
try to put it together. But I do agree with you. It has to be done almost separate from the committee, brought in as a proposal and then adopted or not adopted or added to or changed or whatever. It's the best way to handle it. But it takes somebody taking it on or several taking it on.
And I don't think that select board's looking for a 30-page report. They're basically looking at a table and or numbers, like how much money, what roads need to be done in a 3 to 5 year plan, and or much more importantly, how much money is this going to cost? So when they go to town meeting and request $10 million as an example for roads and sidewalks, this is what's going to get done with that $10 million. So that's what I see. And I don't see it being long and exhaustive. One of the obstacles with any one of these committees is this, say, stupid open meeting law, whereby, we have to wait every 2 weeks to talk about things for an hour and our lives get crazy, as opposed to communicating by email as a group, and as like the real world does, and private entities sending emails back and forth and commenting on things and prioritizing things, as opposed to trying to get this all done in an hour. So that's a hurdle as well.
Guys, listen, so I'm going to be pretty much out of the town for the next few weeks through August, like through July 28th or something. So my ability to put boots on the ground is nil before that deadline. But I do have, I will be in an office next week with not much going on. So I could do some homework on the computer. So if there is that spreadsheet, I could start working on that, and maybe, I guess I'm thinking that they probably have in sections, and then we have the criteria. So I could just run through the sections and align it with the criteria and get some kind of grid. And I work everything in grids, so that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay,
Well, Bob, thank you. I think
that's great.
that'd be incredibly helpful. And if you wanted to share that, I guess with me as the chair, I very much appreciate that. Just can't share with the entire group. And then
If it's
what I
information,
could do is,
Jay, if it's information, can't you share just information? It's not decisions. Can't you? I believe you can, if it's a spreadsheet, but it makes no claim for being the decision of the committee. I think you can share information like that. You have to have some sharing.
yeah.
There's got to be collaboration outside of the meetings, right?
Yeah. Well,
as long as you're not trying to
it depends
decide
on what
it.
that collaboration is. Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's not decisional, but
Right.
if we're making this, like if Bob sends a spreadsheet and then Frank looks at that and reorganizes that, and then someone else reorganizes it and kind of looks at it, it kind of is like it's deliberation. Believe me, I think it's stupid and I don't agree with it. I just want to make sure we're on the up and up.
The thing is, if Bob circulates it, each person can take a look at it. They don't have to share it. They just bring it to the meeting at the time we have the meeting with their observations, right? That's
great.
Okay.
Well, so for homework, as far as this report goes, let's all take a look, and I will, actually, it's a question for Carol. Since we're talking about all this, the sharing of information. Carol, I know there's yes?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know that Ralph and I have, and I don't know if anyone else has, a town email just by being on other committees in the town. Is there a way to create a OneDrive for like a repository for like putting up the current paving plan, or a document like if we were to create for prioritization, all of the documents that we've already did, can we put that on a OneDrive and have committee members access that?
Let me find out from IT and I'll let you know.
Okay, I think that would be very helpful. Because even when I go pull up an old document, I've got to kind of go find where that email is, or look in a sub folder of another folder here. So if we could create a OneDrive, and if we can, that would be great. Circulate that to the group, and I won't. you send me the link, I can upload things, or I'll send you the documents and you can upload them. Thank you.
We do use, Jay, we use OneDrive on the town website for the capital
Right.
committee. So that's exactly right. That's how we do it. Yeah.
Right, and so all committees basically have that Concom planning board in preparation of the next meeting.
Yeah.
I just don't know, if you don't have a town email address, you won't be able to log on to the 365 Microsoft account. And so it might have to be created outside of the town.
Sometimes you can do it better with Google rather than
Yeah.
it's sort of more
Right.
open than the town website.
Right.
Yeah.
Or people don't want to hear this, but give everybody a town email address. Okay, I see that, Paul Grady, Carol, can you promote Paul Grady, please? See, he just joined as an attendee. So still waiting for Brian. Hi, Paul. So still, for the record, Paul Grady has joined this committee. Paul, we just basically gave an update of the select board, and since you are a select board member, we're kicking around a report that the select board had requested with a, I don't know how firm it is, but of a date of approximately August 1st to just get a report together. Do you want to elaborate at all a little bit more as far as what you're going to intend to do with the report? My understanding is that you want it well in advance of the town meeting, so that when in advance of town meeting or at town meeting, there will be a request for a larger sum of money for roads, sidewalks, other than things like ball fields, etc. Is that, you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, there is going to be asked, as we know, for a larger sum of money.
Right.
And then after that, ongoing maintenance. But I do know, if we come up with something that's, August 1st may be a bit ambitious, but we do have till time. I could push that off to say September or something like that. But this is kind of the big ticket items we're looking at. What are we going to do with Elm? What are we going to do?
Right.
So we got to present. We've got a wish list this year that we want to. And what are we going to do with, say, our roads and sidewalks? I mean, I think maybe the plan that we're talking about is more Elm, and then what we do going forward. Are we going to attack roads and sidewalks, which we've all pretty much discussed as the way to go? If we're doing a road, why aren't we doing the sidewalk?
Right.
I know that there's some ancillary roads, like we have Pleasant Street, which was paved, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, but that is a safety issue. So how do we want to present that? Just to get in there, do the sidewalks and level it out. That's, that may be ambitious on August 1st, but if we get it in, we come up with some consensus as a group, I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. And I don't think it would happen August 1st, but I'd like to think we could get it done early to mid-August. But that's very helpful. And what we talked about is trying to put together not a very exhaustive report, but more like table oriented with prioritization of roads and cost figures associated that on a 3 to 5 year plan. Does that sound right?
It does. Again, there may be some, we want to look at least I'd say we leave some wiggle room, because, there are roads that we have that don't need replacement right now. But there's some sidewalks, and we talked about our connectivity to school, to the beaches. Where do we need sidewalks? Where do sidewalks need to be, replaced? So for instance, I know Frank was talking about Pleasant Street. He's absolutely spot on that. It's a busy road. There's bus stops. There is, you have the new apartments going in. I'm assuming that's gonna spell some kids. And those we have, I think people will respond to that. But then again, within that mile, you have Cushing Road, which has sidewalks. They're degraded, but it's not an emergency that we replace them because they're safe. And there is a buttress between them with some green space.
Okay.
So down the road as a maintenance plan, yes. But the ones that are degraded, like say on Jerusalem, that people walk, that Pleasant, that's my thought. And maybe, Jay, and I'm sorry to talk so much, is if we could bump up like a connectivity from say King Street to Pont. And I know that we have and this is something maybe for Brian, we have Pleasant Street, Pond Street, I apologize, going up the hill. There is no sidewalk going up to the school, but if we can connect that while they're paying for the road that's going to be paved, it might be a no-brainer right there.
Okay, yeah, no, we get into a lot of detail there, but I completely agree with, everything you're saying there. And so let's, as a homework assignment for the next meeting, let's go in and do our own individual prioritization, looking at the sidewalk report, and then B, the paving plan, and come up with our own sheet. All right, Brian, I see you have joined us. Brian, what I went through was just, I gave an update, the same update that I gave to the select board, which you were there. Thank you very much. I want to talk a little bit about Elm Street in a few minutes and focus on that discussion. But any update on the roadways, Smith, Pleasant, etc., about the upcoming paving plan?
Yeah, so we're I'm ordering. We have to do some castings on Smith Place. Needs 3 or water services that's getting worked on now, and Margin Street needs new watertight sewer manholes because that floods periodically. So those are on order, and once we get those in place, that'll be a go. I just left. It's not early on your list, but North Main Street Grid is paving. They're just finishing the mill right now on North Main Street by the train tracks, and they'll be paving that tomorrow. So tonight,
I saw the miller out there yesterday. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so they're milling it right now, and they'll leave it. They'll leave the ends transition so that it won't be too bad of a bump. But tomorrow it'll be paved fully, and that should be cleaned up nicely.
Okay.
Other than that, no real updates. Beechwood was paved yesterday. The trench repair or the final trench repair, and we'll let that settle and revisit that curb to curb. Likely next spring, but we could check it late fall.
Okay.
Brian, can I ask a question, Jay?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just for Brian. Brian, the reason my neighbor is asking me, do we have any dates, say, on Smith Place? Roughly? She's concerned about people coming. I'm only asking offline because people are coming to visit and staying with her for a while. That's the only reason I'm asking, my friend.
Roughly, we have probably 2 to 3 weeks of water service work. Really, the water main was done up there, but the long services across the street were never done. So those are old lead or iron pipe with lead gooseneck services. So that those are being replaced, and barring any kind of, we use the same trenches, but barring any issues, probably 2 to 3 weeks. We'll give TL Edwards the go. So it'll be Margin Street and Smith Place together. So hopefully, coincidentally, we can get the sewer covers done on Margin and Smith Place done, and then I'll say 6 weeks from now be paving, or 4 to 6 weeks.
Fantastic. All right, I'd let her know. Thanks for that.
I mean, as we get closer, once we get the sewer covers done and the water services done, we'll get a better handle on.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
All right. So any other questions on upcoming plan before we jump to Elm Street? All right. So Elm Street, after we had a discussion at the select board meeting, just a quick update on from the Sidewalk Committee. We had Mike Sidina give a nice overview of the Elm Street proposal, which was basically the plan that you had last seen as well. I don't think anything had changed from it, as you know, and I could put the plan up here if needed, but basically added additional parking, et cetera, et cetera. And the main takeaway that I got from the select board is, so we talked about timing, number one, on when this happened, and some of the feedback was some of the same feedback that we had gotten at this committee. Is there, when we talked about it, is the unknowns of the harbor project, etc., the grant application that is at least submitted to the state of Massachusetts that we won't find out about until October. So so timing was an issue. Some comments from the select board were that this might be a better project suited for spring of 2024. I think from what I gathered, barring some comments, which I'll get into in a minute, but the select board was very supportive of the project. They would like to see something done on Elm Street. There was no adverse reaction to absolutely not. We're not spending a penny on Elm Street. I think every of the board members that spoke were very supportive of it. They wanted to see it get done. As you know, the Sidewalk Committee recommended moving this forward to the select board. So this is not a question of whether or not it gets done, in my view, and I've expressed this to individual select board members. It's a question of timing, which it appears we would most likely be looking at spring, unless something miraculously happened in the fall. But it came down to some comments about individual parking, and I'll relay those. And I may actually made some of those comments as well when to Mike when we had our sidewalk committee meeting, and I'll reiterate some of the comments from the select board members as well. And I know, Paul, you were at the meeting as well. And the comments were with respect to the parking around the in front of the condos, where the circle, where if you're coming from the Lobster Pound coming over towards Sandy Beach, where the curve comes around, there's proposed to be designated parking there that limits the road to about 22 feet, I believe. So there was concerns from the select board about parking there. There was also concerns about parking on the north side. I believe it's the north side of the triangle itself, and also parking on after you've made the corner, going around the cove there, down towards Margin into Atlantic. And so there were concerns that were brought up from the select board, and for reasons regarding emergency vehicle access, kids that never going to ride their bike on the sidewalk, even if the sidewalk was 10 feet wide. I was riding my bike over there all weekend with my son, and no matter what you do, kids are still going to ride in the middle of the road. And then also the comments have been brought up as well about obstructing the actual view corridor coming down Elm Street. And the view corridor that was proposed didn't have any parking coming down Elm Street and going out to the harbor. So there were three particular areas of concern from the select board. I've reached out to Mike a little bit to get his thoughts. We've been playing phone tag, and I know he's getting on a plane in 17 minutes to fly home and won't be home till late tonight, and has been on travel. So that's kind of where we are with the Elm Street project. Again, others who are at the meeting, feel free to jump in. This is not a question of not wanting to get it done. Everyone that I have spoken to and was at the meeting, the select board, and have spoken to a couple members individually, is very supportive of the project. It's a question of what it's going to look like and the timing of it. And as far as costs go, which we'll get to in a little bit, there's this money that's set aside, and one of my recommendations was to not spend any. We're getting, it's not late in the season, but it starts to get late in the season when you can't pave after October 15th. Not to look for other projects where we can spend this roughly $600,000-$700,000 of a balance that's give or take left over, is to earmark the money specifically for the Elm Street project. And we're still working on those cost figures as well. The first quote that had come in, I know I don't know, Brian or Ralph, if you've had a chance to talk to TL Edwards on this. The first quote that came in to revamp the sidewalks from downtown to the triangle and all around there, the sidewalks and the trees and the landscaping and everything else was $650,000. That didn't include the paving. And I just saw the quote the other day. I think it was $311 or $350,000 for the actual, just to forget all the sidewalk and everything, just to do that mill and overlay of the area from downtown and around to the end of the condos by the Legion. So I don't think anyone's saying to do one or the other. I think we'd all like to make this roadway look nice and bring Elm Street back to what it needs to be. So my guess, playing with some of those numbers, is it's going to be somewhere in the $800,000 range. Lesser would certainly be better. But anyway, that's that. And I don't know, I know, Brian, I see your hand raised. By all means, jump in here.
Yeah, so just that 650,000 included the sidewalks and the mill and overlay. So that was basically the street and the sidewalks.
Well, it
and
did.
What it did not include was, there were a lot of caveats in there because, we need survey work, layout work. It didn't include the tree plantings and other things like that.
Yeah.
But it was the sidewalks and the street, and raising and resetting the curbing, and some addition of curbing where the sidewalk comes out and you need to add some curbing, for those driveways on the south side. The 350,000 was an older. It was a recosting of an older estimate that was just a mill and overlay in its current configuration, not touching the sidewalks at all. And so if you add the sidewalk cost to that 350,000, if we were doing the sidewalks as they are today and doing the mill and overlay, the cost of the new layout versus the cost of the existing layout is very similar. It might be a difference of 80,000 or so thereabouts. So, it comes in. So it's almost an apples to apples, but the long-term paving, reducing your paving square footage is a cost savings. And so that's basically the choice. It's kind of almost similar in cost to do the new layout plus the trees, or the existing layout plus the sidewalks.
All right, well, that's good to know. And reading, I'll get to you in a second there, Paul. Thanks. The 650, the estimate or the quote that I reviewed didn't specifically lay out the pavement materials. So if you're telling me that it did, then that's great, because that seemed pretty high for a sidewalk estimate, because it wasn't clear at all. Or I didn't see the paving in there. Go ahead, Paul.
So Brian, question. So that means we're kind of equal, give or take, on both. If we did the highway that's there now, or we go with the new project.
Yeah, the new project is slightly more by about 80 to 90,000, but that's because of the plantings and the a lot more removal. But yeah, they're roughly equivalent, with the new layout being the install price slightly higher.
Okay.
Well, that's good news.
That's very good to know. That's great to know.
That's really
Ralph,
good to know.
any comment here on any of this? I don't expect it to get into personal conversations that you may have had with Mike, but again, the comments that were relayed from the select board were fairly clear, or at least I got it that it was somewhat clear that they wanted to move the project forward, but did have concerns on some of those parking areas.
Yeah, I think that obviously Mike was disappointed. He thought that he had heard in previous meetings that parking was desired there, so he was fulfilling what he thought either the Harbor Committee and or the Elm Corridor Committee had recommended. So that's what he was saying. I'm just fulfilling what in fact had been recommended. That was what it was about. But he was disappointed. And, but I said to him, really, quite frankly, 99% of it is fine. This, the 1% we're talking about, some of it's just a paint line. So I shouldn't, I'm asking him, don't be concerned. Okay. It's okay. We're doing fine. The one that I do think people have to reconsider, though, is the parking that supports the town landing, which is on Margin Street. Very narrow. It's a lot of problems there, but nevertheless, people are going to park there irrespective of what we do because the town landing's there. So that you can't eliminate it and expect people not to park there. You can say you're not going to put a paint line, but you're not going to eliminate parking because people park on both sides of Margin there, as you probably know, during the summer season. So something has to be done, and I suggest that we be very careful about telling people when they're not going to park there, because that will raise a real firestorm of trouble, I think. So,
What I think it comes down to is a question of whether or not, you raise a good point. People are going to park in certain areas regardless of whether you tell them to park there, if there's an overflow, if there's an event, versus having a dedicated parking spot. When you line that with a spot like down the road here at Rocky Beach or Black Rock Beach, where they're dedicated spots. And so you're basically telling people you can park here as long as you park between the two white lines. And so that opens that all up. But when you don't have those dedicated lines, it's kind of a question whether people park there or not. There's nothing anybody can do at the end of the day. I rode that whole area, and I'm pulling my son on the back of he's on the back of the bike, and where the town landing actually is, the roadway there, and I'm not saying people shouldn't park there. They're going to park there. But as an example, if a car is going from the downtown area to Sandy Beach, you not only have to go around those cars, you physically have to go into the complete opposite lane of a roadway and then come back into your own lane. So in essence, there's a stretch of roadway that on a summer day will be treacherous, that is basically one way. And so those are the things that in reality come to play. And again, I'm not saying people shouldn't park there. It's just, it's having the dedicated spots. People are probably going to park there anyway. Now, one of my recommendations would be, like going around the Cove area, would be to put a bike lane in there. We need more bike lanes. And if it's not going to be parking, I would recommend putting a bike lane in there. And I know that there may be, I go to Cunningham Bridge over there, and I don't know the ins and outs, but it had to do with the federal funding. I don't know, Brian, if you know more about this, but you go to Cunningham Bridge, the minute you hit the pavement where it starts, you look down and there's a bike signage there. And you go another 100 yards and there's another bike signage. And then you go across the bridge, there's another one. And about 2 feet before the pavement stops, there's another sign. So in my view, I'm going to guesstimate here and say that signage was directly tied to the grant and the money in order to do that. But I don't see why we can't have more signs on the road in Cohasset, which leads to a bigger discussion about bike paths. Not a bike path, but bike signage.
Yeah.
Brian,
so the first time I heard the term, those are called sharrows, which are
sharrows. I didn't want to screw that up.
Shared road arrows, so they're called sharrows. But so again, it's not a dedicated bike lane. You don't have a full width,
right?
Plus full 6-foot bike. So it's a shared road, like I guess just awareness for, hey, there's bikes sharing the road with the vehicular traffic. So there's no rule on those. I guess you could paint those anywhere, but if you do a specific bike lane, there is, you have it. I think a minimum of 6 plus the lane next to it. We just don't do that.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that was I'll get to you in a second, Paul. And looking at that TC report, there was a recommendation, because physically may not, it's not certainly going to happen overnight, but maybe one day we'd love all to see it, is Jerusalem Road and King Street have a sidewalk along there. And there was a proposal to do those sharrows. And I almost fell over when I saw the cost. It was like $100,000 to do a mile of these sharrows. And I don't know, you only put them 300 feet apart. So how many do you need? 20 of them. I mean, that seems to me that that could be done in the matter of a couple of hours. I'll go out there with a paintbrush for 50,000 and paint them myself on a warm summer day. But anyway, I think that leads to a bigger discussion about having these sharrows in certain parts of town where they could be easily be done, not a dedicated bike lane because we don't have the space, but it just raises awareness to people driving on these roadways that, hey, there are others that are using this roadway, AKA bikers and walkers.
Jay, I agree with you 100%.
All right. Paul, I saw you had your, thank you, Julie, had your hand raised.
You have my full agreement on those sharrows or yarrows?
Sharrows. And that term is in the TEC sidewalk report.
Well, I think it's a fantastic idea for what the costs are. And, you know, as we work through the committee down the road, our plans go forward. But also, I want to segue back to the town landing for a moment and direct this. I walked it the other day as well. I've done it a couple times. And I know people park there. They're going to continue to park there. But my thoughts are on this, is that's a dedicated drop-off zone. People will still park there, but at least there's signage. My concern is that, like you said earlier, Jay, is that as Hospitality Partners fills up, people are going to park there anyway. So, which is you're kind of splitting hairs because the people that want to park there, get to the boats or get just down to the landing are going to be just as upset when you have someone just grabbing a spot there and staying there. So it was just a thought that occurred to me, is that it's a drop-off zone and you know, subject to a ticket if someone happens, you know, one of our police happen to see it. But it looks like a drop-off zone to boot.
Yeah. Brian, I have a question for you. Based on, now I know you got the quote from T.L. Edwards. Based on Mike's plan, let's say that the select board, which is the governing body here, was ready to, in a perfect world, make a decision and pave that road this year. Would those plans, or are those plans enough for a paving company to come in and locate the sidewalk exactly where it needs to be, etc., elevations, or is that just a piece of paper? Is that enough?
So no, it's
forward with T.L. Edwards.
Yeah, it's not enough. They require layout with some spot elevations like every 50 feet. So we would have to hire a survey firm to come in. And we did this when we did the common project. And they would put stakes in the grass area with an offset on, you know, with an elevation. Yeah. And then they would, you know, get those spot elevations about every 50 feet. It was enough, you know, on linear footage and square footage to estimate, but they would need some layout assistance. So those are the soft costs plus the trees, plus the, you know, any of the vegetations the big difference between the existing layout and the new layout is, you know, ripping up the roadway that's going away, changing the catch basin drop inlets, you know, adding new drop inlets and going to the drainage system on the south side, and then the new curbing on the south side. So that's why the new layout's a little bit additional. Obviously, if you were paving that layout plus versus the existing layout in the future, the new layout is cheaper just because it's small, it's less square footage.
Yeah. And then what we haven't talked about is the whole Woods Hole climate change resiliency project and elevations, etc. And I don't, you know, so that,
I mean, that's timing is everything. I mean, they're, you know, they did a projection. So for those who don't know, Woods Hole Group came in and they did a sea level rise kind of vulnerability stormwater pathway study for town. And around the harbor and generally in that area of Border Street and Jacobs Meadow and Summer Street. And, you know, with a they had different curves on sea level rise, and they kind of designed on a higher estimate of sea level rise. So there's like a lower sea level rise, a higher sea level rise, and they did a 2030, 2050, and 2070 kind of what those sea level rises might look like and what the flooding might look like. And then from there, came up with mitigation measures on how to prevent flooding in the areas around Elm Street, Border Street, the sewer plant, all that. And a couple of the mitigation measures include raising Margin Street and Border Street, basically on both sides of where the new development's going by the Harbor Hotel. But again, you know, the earliest estimate, which is a high estimate for we're talking about 10 years down the road. So say we pave it this year, still, it's to raise it the amount that would be required for a 2030, 2050 projection or theoretical projection. You know, we'll be paving the road again, I think, by that time. So
right, yeah,
to get it designed, and then, you know, hopefully as climate change, you know, Fed money will come in with climate change resiliency, and we could fund that kind of project in the future with more federal funding, not our own, meaning town.
Yeah.
But the idea was that get the design in hand so that we have something canned and ready to go if and when that funding comes in. But I think just timing wise, it shouldn't hold up anything we do right now in the design or layout of, you know, the Mike Sardina's design.
Yeah, no, I agree. Paul?
Brian, is this something, the TL Edwards thing, that interests me? Is this something we could do this year so we're shovel ready? I mean, I know we have some money tied away, so how much are we looking at for that additional work for TL Edwards for the elevations and things like that? And is it something we could do this year so we were shovel ready for first, you know, early FY24 as soon as we're able to pave?
No, we'd get a designer on board, but it's really they need to do the staking right before construction, because the guys doing it using those actual stakes that are in the ground and measuring an offset 20 feet with an elevation point. So, and if they went through a winter, half the stakes would probably be gone. And
right.
Oh, okay.
I did ask. You know, the question is, you know, everybody, the road's in tough shape and we want to get something done. So I did ask TL Edwards, we don't want to spend money that's going to get ripped up. Can you look at the layout and look at what we're proposing? And is there a way we can do just a level course or something that will be part of the base course within the limits of what we're paving, or, you know, with the new design? And so he's looking at that. He's going to get back to me. And, you know, what we didn't want to do is pave curb to curb and then rip up, you know, 8 feet of that, or more.
All right, so Brian, just keep us posted on that, because I don't think anyone's opposed to that. It's just obviously we don't want to spend money and then have to rip it up. I will throw a number out there of $700,000, and it's just throwing a number out there. Obviously, if that's money that we don't want to spend 300 now and then 600 later, if we spend 100 now, but that takes off of work that doesn't need to be done in springtime, and we can still get that done for 600 and still come up, you know, be on budget, give or take the 700, just throwing a number out there, that's an ideal situation. So, so keep us posted on that, Brian, please.
Will do.
So I from what I'm hearing, and I guess, you know, Ralph, I know you and I have either talked to Mike or have communications coming up. It sounds like we need to talk to Mike, since everyone's working off of, you know, Mike's plan. And if Mike is amenable to revising the plan based on the select board comments. And if he is, then that's wonderful. I know there was a select board meeting tonight at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, whenever it is. I talked to the chair and I said, there's no way anyone's going to be ready to present any new plan tonight. But I'm optimistic and hope that we can get on the agenda for the 25th, I believe, 2 weeks from tonight, for a revised plan. And, I'm optimistic. It's encouraging to hear that the chair wants to move this forward and wants to bring Elm Street to the forefront and put it on the agenda, as opposed to not wanting to discuss it and not wanting to be on the agenda. So let's kind of shoot for that. And Ralph, for whatever reason, I guess if Mike is not amenable, not saying he's not going to be, to revising the plan, we'll have to find a way to look at that plan and then, not revise it ourselves, but come to someone present that plan to the select board, so the select board can look at it, can vote on the project and set a time frame. And hopefully by then we'll have some numbers, a little bit more definitive as well in 2 weeks, and then come up with, let the select board make their decision on where they want to go with the project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is that Mike and I and Brian and perhaps Lenny get together and take a quick look at what we're going to do. So if there are other drawing changes,
Yeah.
not only the parking, but other things that might be some savings that we might want to actually wait till we actually have had that meeting before we actually have him go in and change the CAD drawings. So I think we want to do the CAD drawings once. And I think it takes a meeting among the players to make sure we have everything in hand as to what we want to do, if there are any changes, other changes. And I was thinking if we could actually get some cost savings somewhere, I would seek that as well in that whole process. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, all the while keeping in mind the select board comments regarding the parking.
That would be part of it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Mike will have no objection to actually doing that. I think the objection would be to go back and redo the drawings twice more. You want to do it once. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And again, the intent here is for, the objective is for the select board to have one final plan in front of them, to vote on it, hopefully approve it, and then stamp it and then say, this is when the project's going. We've set aside the money. This is the project and nothing's going to hold it up. We have a final plan in place that everyone can agree on.
Yeah. Now,
or at least 3 of the 5.
Yeah. Mike is home tonight, I guess, at 1 a.m. or something.
So late tonight he gets in.
Yeah. So we got to give him a little time to sort of get himself settled, and then we can have a meeting. Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good.
Yeah, and Ralph, I requested of Lenny, so I'll let you know when he gets back to me on his availability.
That's terrific. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Anything else on Elm Street? I know that I had on the agenda here a setting of criteria for the roadways. I just wanted to, I see you, Julia, sharing your screen here. Thank you. Setting of roadways. I want to briefly talk about this because I have a 1 o'clock meeting and I've got to put out a couple fires on this Vermont flooding stuff before that meeting. So, Julie, if you stop sharing for a minute, I'm going to share thank you. Where am I? I'm going to share the draft. Can you see this criteria? Is that coming up?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I have incorporated a committee member's comments in here. This is the latest. I have not had any comments from others. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. What I was going to do is redistribute this out. This is the latest and greatest to the group. We've talked about this now a little bit. You're kind of getting a little bit of an idea of, the particular roadways we're looking at, and more importantly, future roadways and or sidewalks that we are looking at. And when we start to prioritize, we do that in a manner that falls within some of these categories. And this is not the number 1 priority, the number 2, 1 through 6. These are our priorities. There's no particular ranking here, although we seem to have ranked the school connectivity always comes up as number 1 and probably is. That's not to lessen some of the things down there like 4, 5, and 6. So I will send this out as a clean version to everybody. I just wanted to share and see where we are right now. I've not gotten a lot of comments back, so I would encourage everybody to submit or review it, take a look at it, and get back to me as to whether or not you like things, and so that we can kind of sign off on this. And this will be part of the report that goes to the select board as well, as far as how we came up with prioritizing our future needs that fit within this criteria. Does that all make sense?
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
Great. Next item is the report to the select board and next steps, which I talked about. I know everybody's busy. Once this report, we're in kind of like the crunch time of this committee here. I anticipate and hope that come September, October, November, we have a little bit of a less restrictive schedule here, and maybe we can only meet once a month, and coming November, December, January, February, when things kind of lessen a little bit. But I think for the time being, for the next couple of months, it would be great to meet every 2 weeks here. So I'm going to propose the next meeting. Let me look at my real calendar here and see, how is this time frame working out? We've got almost a full committee here today. And now that we only need 4 people.
It works fine for me.
All right.
Yep,
And maybe
same.
the next couple won't be so long-winded. If I go 2 weeks out, let me see here. Where am I? 25th. I could do the 26th. I can't do 2 weeks from today. How does the 26th at 11:30 look for everybody?
That's a tough one for me, Jay. I'm in court usually on Thursdays.
That's a Wednesday, sorry.
Oh, it's a Wednesday? If it's a Wednesday,
Yeah, the
that's okay.
26th is a Wednesday.
All right.
What time did you say, Jay?
We could do any time. I just throw it 11:30. We could do 12 o'clock, and hopefully it's not that long of a meeting.
I have a meeting at 1 that I'll have to do a little preparation for ahead of time. So if it is around 12, then I'll have to sign off a bit early. I could maybe
Right.
make 45 minutes, but I'm free all morning and all afternoon after 2 o'clock.
How about 11:30? Does that work for the rest of them? You?
Yes.
All right,
11:30 is good.
let's shoot for 11:30 on the 26th for our next meeting. And we'll get we'll finalize all the agenda. I'll get a meeting notice out to you, or agenda out to you, Carol. Thank you. And if Carol, in the meantime, you could work on seeing about a OneDrive that can go out outside of.
I already sent a request out to IT to see if they can help us.
Okay, great. And again, the big thing here is for people that do not have a Town of Cohasset email address.
Mhm.
Let me ask the question. People that don't have a Town of Cohasset email address, be completely honest. Do you want one?
I have one. I find it a little bit hard to log in. So I don't check it very often. To be perfectly honest, don't tell anyone.
Same here. I've got like 4 email addresses, and
Yeah.
I missed something last week on the town email. I'm like, I never check this.
Yeah, no, me neither. But if I knew I was getting stuff more regularly there, then I would make it a priority. I just haven't.
I think I'm not saying we would use that email address. It's just that it might be more easier to access the OneDrive documents through the town page or your emails. That's all. Just to access the OneDrive and the documents.
I definitely like the OneDrive idea. Could the town email be forwarded to our current email that we check, or was that not okay?
I think the difficulty with the town email or getting one is that our IT director is very concerned about who's on the email or who has access to the town website. So I think he gets very cautious about these things. That's all. But there's no particular reason why you can't have an address as long as he's convinced that, you know, you have a good, strong password and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's wait to hear back from town and see where that goes. All right, anything else we didn't cover? Appreciate your time today. So next steps, again, I'll send an email out, later this week, early next week. And I'll send the documents, look at the paving plan, look at the TC report, and start to think about prioritizing. And if Bob, you want to generate something, send it around, fine, let's do it. Let's go down that road. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll work on that, guys.
All right.
Great.
Ralph, I'll be in touch as I communicate with Mike as well. I'm going to try and give him a call tomorrow.
Okay.
Let him sleep in.
Yep.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.